For question 8, it says a teacher is designing a program to perform simple syntax checks on programs written by students. Student programs are submitted as text files, which are known as project files. A project file may contain blank lines. This check file we need to create. This takes the name of an existing project file as a parameter of type string, then returns true if the file is valid. And for it to be valid, it has to contain at least 10 non-blank lines, otherwise it returns false. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this. And as always, if you want, I think this is actually for 8, kind of part B. But yeah, this is just an example project file that you can use. Right, just click on the exam questions, scroll down to the correct year, the correct paper, and then just click open in code editor. Right, so here then let's go function, and I think it's a CheckFile. Then here it's going to be file name. Right, this takes a parameter of type string, and then returns, this will just be boolean, okay, true or false. And I mean, if we think about this, what we're doing is we're just counting how many lines are not empty. So that means, of course, we're going to need some sort of count variable. Let's call it maybe valid lines, maybe valid line count. Right, that'll be an integer. Let's also just initialize this to 0, just so we don't forget. And if we're reading from a file, we're also going to need a variable to store the current line that we've read. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that's going to be enough. But yeah, I mean, I will also leave myself space, just in case. Just in case I forget something. Right, so reading a file then. First we need to open it. So let's go open, then file name, open file. Right, then we say the file name. Right, then we have the file mode. So here it will be for read. Okay, then we can just have while, so while not end of file. Or we could go, while end of file equals false, right, that's also equivalent. Right, this do is also optional. Right, and then, hang on. Right, so, to read file, we just go read file, then we say the file name that we want to read. Right, then we say the variable where we're storing this data. Okay, so then what we'll do, I guess we'll just check if the line is empty. So we could go, right, if length of line, in fact, let's check if it's not empty. So yeah, if length of line is greater than 0, right, or a better way to do it is if the line is not equal to an empty string. Right, then what we want to do, we just want to increment the valid line count. And then here we can just check, I think it's greater than or equal to. It says at least 10 non-empty lines. So here then, this will just be if. So if valid line count is greater than or equal to 10, right, and then here we can just return true, because this means it is a valid file. And let's also make sure to remember to close the file inside here. Okay, because if we return true, that means the file would have never been closed. Right, and let's just have the end if for this one. Yeah, we have end while. Right, so I think that should be okay. And then if we think about this, if we've looped through the entire file and we've not returned true, that must mean it's going to be an invalid file. So yeah, we're just going to go return false. And likewise, also remember to close the file. Okay, so yeah, let's just end function, and then we can just test this. So if we go output, this will be check file. Right, then we'll just go gym01 program txt. And I mean, if we look at this file, this has many non-empty lines. Okay, so this should say true, right? It should be valid. Okay, right, so this seems to work. Now, let's say if we just simplify this, maybe 1, 2, 3, I guess, 4, 5, 6. Okay, something like this. Here, of course, there's only 7 non-empty lines, so it should say false. And I mean, let's actually try, so if we have 10, right, so 10, it should say true. And we can also have some empty lines like this. Right, this one should say true. Alright guys, so again, I mean, this seems to be working. Hopefully this makes sense, and I guess then we'll move on to the part B. Next it says further modules are defined as follows. There's checkLine, which takes a line from a project file as a parameter of type string, and returns 0 if the line is blank or contains no syntax errors. Otherwise it returns an error number as an integer. Now this error number, this is not the count of how many errors. Alright, this will just be basically like an error code. So let's say you have a syntax error, no closing bracket. well, that could be error code 1, right? If you have another syntax error, I don't know, maybe, yeah, no closing quote, well, that can be syntax error 2. Okay, so yeah, this is not an actual count, it's just the actual error code. Right, then CountErrors, this is the one we need to write. It will take two parameters, the name of a project file as a string, the maximum number of errors as an integer. It then uses CheckFile to test the project file and outputs an error message if the project file is not valid. Right, so if it has if it has less than 10 non-empty lines. Right, then it calls checkLine for each line in the project file. It will count the number of errors and output the number of errors, right, or a warning message if the maximum number of errors is exceeded. And then it says, yeah, we kind of want to use this as our like test case. So using this program, and well, the second parameter will be 20 errors. Yeah, and then it says, well, we want to write this CountErrors, and CheckFile and CheckLine have already been written. Okay, so let's just go here. And yeah, what we're going to do, I mean, I guess first we can just call it. Because yeah, this is part B. So here it's going to be CountErrors, and then what is it, Gym? Okay, Gym01 program, right, txt, and then they say 20 errors. Okay, and well, then let's just go ahead and actually define this procedure. Okay, so CountErrors, and then well, here this takes a file name. Yeah, that's going to be string. Yeah, as we can see here. Right, then the max errors, this will be an integer. Let's make sure just to have the end procedure. Okay, and then what we're going to do, well, as always, if we have a file, and yeah, let me just, you know, maximize this. Right, if we have a file, then we'll also want to store a line. Okay, that would be a string. Yeah, this will be the current line that we read. And then I guess we also need an error count as well. So let's go error count, and that'll be integer. Right, let's just initialize this to 0. And yeah, I think hopefully that should be all the variables we need. Now, the first one, it says, okay, we want to use CheckFile to test the project file. And yeah, I guess if it's invalid, well, then we just stop. Okay, so here we can just have an if statement. Let's say CheckFile, and we see, well, this takes the file name as string. So I guess we can say, well, if it is valid, right, well, then we'll just kind of do the main code in here. Right, or else if it's not valid, we just output a warning. So let's say file name, and then we can say, yeah, maybe doesn't contain 10 non-empty lines. Right, okay, I think that's fine. And then if we just go end if. Now, let's say here then, the next thing we want to do, well, we want to call checkLine for each line in the file and yeah, count the number of errors. And I noticed in the mark scheme, they actually stop if the number of errors exceeds the maximum number of errors. Because I guess, well, the reason they do that is, like, let's say you have let's say here, yeah, maximum error is 20, right? If you've already seen 21 errors, then I guess, yeah, they say, well, you don't have to continue because, you know, the file is already invalid, right? You may as well just stop. So I mean, yeah, let's just try and have this then as a while loop. So first we want to say while the, well, let's just read the file, right? So while not end of file, and that'll be file name. Right, and then and I guess for and we want the error count to be what, less than or equal to the maximum number of errors. Because yeah, for example, like if there's 20 and we have 20 errors, well, that will still be valid, right? But it's only if it exceeds it, right? So only if it goes to 21. So yeah, right, and error count is less than or equal to the max errors. Right, then let's just have this do. Let's go end while. And in fact, let's also make sure just to open file. So this will be file name, and we'll just say for read. Okay, so here then we just want to read the line. So let's go read file. This will take the file name, and then we'll store this in line. And what we can do, I think here is where we can call checkLine. So right, let's go if checkLine. Right, this takes the line as a parameter, and what if this is not equal to 0? Because if we look at this checkLine, what this does, if there's no errors, it returns 0. Right, if there is an error, then it returns the error code, right, which will be a sort of non-zero integer. So yeah, this means if there is an error, right, because it is not 0. Right, then what we want to do, we just want to increment the error count. Yeah, and I think is that all we need to do? Yeah, I think that's all we need to do there. Right, and then, well, then let's just check, because I think here they want two different messages. Right, one will be if it's valid, but it will still output the number of errors found. And then, yeah, two will be if it's like an invalid file, okay, and then there's going to be a kind of more explicit warning message. So let's say the first one, right, this can be if the error count is what, less than or equal to the max errors. And I suppose here we can just go like file OK or something. Yeah, let's say file, maybe file OK. Let's say errors found. And then we'll just have the errors found, or yeah, the error count. Right, then let's have an else, and here is where we want the warning message. Yeah, I don't know, maybe file has too many errors, or yeah, file invalid, maybe. Right, let's say errors found, and yeah, then again, just go the error count. Right, so I think that should be okay, and I mean, let's just remember to close the file. And you know, in the exam, I would say just make sure you've got everything. So we've got procedure, we've got the end procedure, we've got open file, we've got close file. Yeah, just sort of go through the ifs, right? The you know, the while, the end while. But yeah, hopefully that's got everything. So we'll test it. And yeah, okay, this says file okay, errors found 7. And I mean, the next time we run this, well, basically this will just return like a random number of errors. You know, it's not really checking the syntax. So the next time it's probably not going to return 7 again. But let's try something like maybe 3. And I mean, probably this will return false. Yeah, okay, so here I guess we found 4 errors this time, and yeah, 3. Yeah, then it just says file invalid. And yeah, where is this true coming through from? Okay, I think I've got this. Alright, so if we just delete this. Yeah, okay, and then here we go. And notice again that, right, it's only saying we found 4 errors, because I guess once it gets to 4, well, then it just stops, okay, because, well, 4 is greater than this maximum number of errors. Anyway, guys, I mean, again, hopefully this makes sense. Any questions, right, ask in the comments, ask in the Discord group, and hopefully see you in the next video.